Yeah.
William doesn't act in anger, and he doesn't sweat the small stuff. He doesn't bite every time the press do something. He rides the wave, and so does Princess Catherine. And this is, what you see from Harry and Meghan, for example, is they believe their own hype. They act in emotion. They think they're smarter than the press, and they are trying to manipulate people badly, in my opinion.
Mm.
But with William, less is more. So he knows that when he does something, people will watch and people will listen, but he doesn't have to do things all the time. His value doesn't come from press. His identity doesn't come from that. And so we saw with the Apple TV interview recently, which I thought was such a genius move. He was wearing relaxed clothing. He was in a pub. He was
Yeah.
really saying, ask me anything. And he was chatting person to person. And his ego doesn't rely on going to the biggest streamer like Netflix. It doesn't rely on being on the cover of magazines or being in Forbes lists. And this is what I think shows for me that William has integrity, because as a publicist, there's only so much you can do with a client. They will let themselves down eventually, because if you are controlling them too tightly, and if you are being too bossy and too dominant on the narrative, they are still a real person. So real life will take over, and they will show you their true colors. And that is what has happened with Harry and Meghan.
Yes, and I'm going to get onto them. I just wanted to mention that I saw your fantastic interview with Andrew Lownie. It was great. And I felt like jumping in and sort of protecting him, because he talks in shorthand. And from what I picked up, because I've asked him, was that with William, he doesn't have faith about financial transparency. So in relation to the Duchy of Cornwall and all that sort of thing, because he's such a stickler for financial transparency for the royal family. Now, of course, William doesn't have to be financially transparent, because that isn't what the law is yet. But hopefully, things will happen, that things will be put in place. Not so much for William, but we don't know when we're going to get another bad egg through the ranks. Obviously not the Wales's kids, they're perfect. But, down the track, long after we're gone, there could be another Andrew and Sarah coming along. And I think you would need things in place to sort of stop that happening, because you could just see it would happen all again, because, there isn't enough transparency yet, I don't think. I wanted to get on to...
I think for too long, the royal family have operated with no transparency. And I think, the times have changed, yes, but we are living in different times now. And so, this whole aristocracy up here and we the people down there, that's just, we can't be living like that anymore. And since the late Queen died, our country is in an appalling way. And I don't think that's by accident. I think she was incredible she met with the Prime Minister every week. And this is something that, the monarch will always do. But everything has just gone down a landslide since she left. And I think William has an opportunity at the right time to bring transparency and to merge that gap between elites and, like, we feel like peasants, in this country, that we're not listened to by Charles, or, well, I can't talk for everyone, but from a lot of people I've spoken to. And I think that gap needs to be bridged by William at the right time. But I do think it will be, because if you look at how he lives his life, he is very focused on normality, and he's not someone that is driven by money. He's not someone we see that's flashy, that's going to, if you compare William and Harry, it's very, very clear how different they are. So I think William really has to bring a level of transparency with him. But I do have faith that he will, because I think he's a very honourable man.
Yes, I have faith he will too. I'm hanging on to that hope. I think a lot of people are hanging on to the hope of King William V, honestly,
Yeah.
because like you said, it's all gone tits up, and
Mm.
people are just looking for something that's something they can hang on to, that's solid, that feels more worthy. Ranker, LA-based site, uses crowdsourcing to fuel its rankings and says Meghan is the most loathed person on the planet. Sean Diddy Combs is second and Harry is third. Now, this was a huge sample size,
I mean,
48,000 people. Is that worth listening to?
I
Is
mean,
Ranker worth listening to?
I've never heard of Ranker. Okay,
Oh,
I am no fan of Harry and Meghan. But I would ask, this concerns me that we know the crimes that Diddy has committed, and I believe a huge amount of them have been spun and moved out of the way potentially. And so I
yeah.
would ask those people that have voted Harry and Meghan, or Meghan before Diddy. I find this concerning because we know for a fact that Diddy abuses women. We've had so
Mm,
many testimonies come forwards. We've had so many
yes,
victims and survivors come forwards. And so
yes.
I think, yes, I am no fan of Harry and Meghan, trust me. But, I would really question these results. It sounds like a site's done this to get press, because I don't know anyone of sane mind that would vote a woman beating bully that Diddy is
Yes.
after Meghan Markle.
Yes, and that's why I asked you, because I thought I'd never heard of Ranker just because I just wasn't, in touch with what I should be in touch with. But it's true, but it really does indicate the power of these pieces, because this has just gone around today. It's
Mhm.
everywhere. I've had people messaging me about it.
Yeah.
And, it can be complete BS,
Mm.
but it gains a lot of traction, which it's quite unbelievable.
And
I
it
did want to.
creates clickbait as well. They get more money. This is the thing. We are living in a
Yeah,
sea of misinformation, of fake
yeah,
news. And
yeah,
I said to you, actually, didn't I, before we came on, I think that is why I love what you do, Shauna, because you're level-headed and you are measured. And in a world where people can make a quick buck by being incredibly nasty and creating content that is, going down hard just on people like Meghan, you
mm,
give a balanced view. And I think that's really admirable, because it's very rare, in this
thank you.
climate. And I always say people have to work hard for their news. Anyone can come on YouTube and say, my source. Anyone can go to a newspaper and say, my source. So,
Mm,
it is really a murky world where people have to find the truth for themselves. And I always say, we have to work harder for our
mm.
news now than ever before.